Have you ever been in a situation where you thought, if it's like this forever, I don't know what I'm going to do. There's absolutely no way I can take this forever. Something's got to change. Like I absolutely cannot do this. Maybe one more day, but definitely not forever, right? I've felt like that before. But the thing is, that is one of Satan's tricks. He is trying to make us think that temporary things are going to last forever. And he's trying to make us think that we only have two choices, either be miserable or maybe do something wrong. And that's where Samson is today. Satan also knows all of our weaknesses, right? And so the story that we're going to talk about today, Samson's weakness is women. And so a lot of times that's what you'll hear whenever you learn about Samson and Delilah. People will talk to you about, resisting the snares of a woman. But I want us to talk about just resisting the snares of Satan, because Satan used this woman. She's just a tool, right? She is just a pawn in his game. And he is using her because that is Samson's weakness. But we all have a weakness, and Satan knows what they are. And he tries to box us in and make us think that we have no other option than to give in to our weakness because we can't take this forever, right? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to go through the story of Samson and Delilah, and then we're going to talk about how Satan does the same thing to us that he did to him, and what maybe we can do about that to at least recognize that this is a lie and not allow our emotions to get in the way, because that's what Satan is doing. He is using our emotions against us, trying to make us make bad decisions. And we don't have to be, falling into the trap of a woman in order for that to happen to us. And so let's go ahead and just get right into this story. Last week, if you remember, Samson had begun to judge the Philistines, and that was his entire purpose for his whole life. From the moment that he was conceived, God told his mother, he is going to be set aside for my purposes. And Samson was supposed to show that he was dedicated to God by doing outward things, which were staying away from alcohol, staying away from unclean things, which would be dead bodies, and then not cutting his hair. And by doing these outward things, it was just these things did not, make him actually dedicated to God, but it showed that he was dedicated to God. And so this is what he has done his entire life. And we found out last week that because he has dedicated his life to God, the Holy Spirit gives him strength. And so he has enough strength to fight his enemies. And so his first encounter with the Philistines was at his wedding. And from that moment on, they have gone back and forth, fighting each other. His wife and her dad and family were killed by the Philistines because of this feud. And Samson has killed over 1,000 Philistines at this point. And so presumably the feud has died down at this point when we start chapter 16. And so verse 1 says, Samson went to Gaza and he saw a harlot there, and he went into her. And when the Gazites were told Samson has come here, then they surrounded the place and they lay wait for him all night at the gate of the city. They were quiet all night, saying, in the morning, whenever it is daylight, then we'll kill him. And so Samson laid low until midnight, and then he arose at midnight, and it says he took hold of the doors of the gate of the city and the two gateposts, and he pulled them up, bar and all, put them on his shoulders, and carried them to the top of the hill that faces Hebron. So this is his strength, right? You can see his strength now. He takes the gate by its doors, lifts it up, and lifts both of the poles out of the ground, which were obviously buried deep so that it would support this gate, and lifted them up and sat them on his shoulders, and then carried them up a hill. And this hill that faces Hebron is like 38 miles away. And so he is carrying the gate of the city on his shoulders for almost 40 miles uphill. And so he's no match for these people, right? That's why they've only killed his wife and her family, because they burned her house down. And he has killed over 1,000 of them, right? Because he has the power of God on his side. And so he's escaped them for now. And then it says, after this happened, that he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came upon her, and they said to her, hey, entice him, find out the secret to his strength, and how we might be able to bind him and take him captive. And if you will do this, then each one of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver. And so there were 5 lords of the Philistines, 5 rulers. And so if each one of them gave her 1,100 pieces of silver, then she would have 5,500 pieces of silver, which they say would have been the weight of over 100 pounds. And so this is obviously a huge sum of money. And so she's willing to do this. She's like, sure, for that much money, I'll do this. We have no knowledge that she loves him back, right? But it says that he fell in love with her. And so she is willing to take this money and sacrifice his life for that. And so she begins to entice him as they have asked her to do. And it says in verse 6, please tell me where your great strength lies and with what you may be bound to afflict you. Now, super confusing that she would be this blatant, because I can understand as a wife saying, tell me your deepest, darkest secrets, honey. I want to know everything about you. And yeah, I know you're not telling everybody else, but I'm the one you love and you can't keep things from me, right? And so please tell me the secret to your strength. That makes perfect sense. But then to add on, tell me how I could tie you up and make you where you couldn't get out of it. That's what she's asking him. And so she must have a lot of confidence in her womanly skills, right? That she thinks that she is going to get this out of him just because she's beautiful, just because he loves her. What is the thought process here? This makes absolutely no sense to me that she would go this far, but she does. And Samson, for his part, lies to her and tells her fake reasons. And so the first reason, he says, well, if you tie me up with 7 bowstrings that have not dried yet, then I'll be just as weak as any other man and I won't be able to get away. And so she's like, okay, great. And so she tells the Philistines this. She says, this is how we can get him, is to tie him up with these bowstrings. And so they say, okay, we'll go get the bowstrings and you tie him up in his sleep. And then after you tie him up, then we'll come and capture him. And she says, okay. And so she ties him up. And after she ties him up, she hollers at him and says, like she's warning him, oh no, Samson, the Philistines are upon you, break free. And he does, because it was a lie, right? And so it says he breaks the bowstrings like it was a piece of thread. And so then she is sad, right? And she throws it all back on him as if she wasn't just trying to capture him, right? And so she says, Samson, you lied to me. You're mocking me. Please tell me the secret to your strength. And so he tells her another lie. He says, yeah, you're right. That was a lie. Well, here's the real deal. If you tie me up with 2 new ropes, then I won't be able to break free. I'll be just like any other man, and I will, not be able to break free, which is super weird that she would think he was telling her the truth now, because he knows before he presumed that she would tie him up, because why else would she ask, how will you not be able to break free if I were to tie you up? But now he knows that that's what she's going to do, right? And so he tells her another fake reason. She ties him up. The Philistines come. She tells him. He breaks free from that. And so then she goes to him again and she says, Samson, you lied to me. I can't believe you're lying to me. You're mocking me. You're making me feel stupid. Please tell me the truth. And so he says, okay, if you weave 7 locks of my hair into the loom and then pin it up together, then I won't be able to break free from that. And so she's like, okay. And so he falls asleep and she weaves his hair. Remember, he's never had his hair cut, so it's very long. And so she weaves his hair into this loom and then calls on him again, and he just pulls his hair out of it. And so now she's really laying it on thick. She's like, Samson, you've lied to me 3 times. You're making me look so stupid. And he is, right? She says, you're mocking me. And he's like, yeah, I'm mocking you. He doesn't say that, but of course he's mocking her. He's telling her lies because it only makes sense. Why would he tell her the truth, right? And so she keeps on. You would think after a little while of looking stupid in front of everybody, she would give up. But no, this woman is relentless. And so in verse 15, she says, how can you say that you love me if your heart isn't with me? You've mocked me these 3 times and you haven't told me where your great strength lies. And so then it says, it came to pass that when she had pestered him daily with all of her words and pressed him so that his soul was vexed to death, which means he couldn't take it anymore. He's like, I think I would rather die than listen to this woman every single day. All she does is pester me daily. She's crying. She's saying, I don't love her. She's saying that, I'm mocking her. I'm lying to her. I'm such a horrible husband. And I cannot listen to this every day. Never mind that she is trying to kill him, right? So that's what he should do. He should just turn it back on her and say, are you kidding me? I am the one that is a liar. I am the one that is not a good husband. I'm the one that doesn't love you. Seriously? No, you're trying to kill me. That's what he should say. But no, in his mind, he has no other option because he cannot stand this one more second. And so he has decided, I would rather die than listen to this anymore. And so it says that he told her all of his heart. And he said, no razor has ever come to my head, for I've been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. And if I am shaven, then my strength will leave me, and I will become as weak as any other man. And so this makes you wonder, what is he really thinking? Is he actually fine with dying? Like, does he really think it would be better to die than it would be to deal with her every single day? Is that actually his thought? And so he knows, yes, she's going to cut my hair and the Philistines are going to come upon me and they're going to capture me and I don't care, right? Is that what he's really thinking? Or is he thinking that he can not dedicate himself to God anymore and that God is still going to let him have his strength? What is he thinking here? Seems as though all he's thinking is, I can't take this anymore and I'm getting out and I don't care. Right? That's what he's really thinking. No long-term thoughts, it doesn't seem. And so she realizes, he's broke down. He finally told me the truth. And so she goes back to the Philistines and she's like, he's told me the truth now. I'm going to cut his hair tonight. You come and capture him. And so it says she put him to sleep on her lap and then she cuts his hair and then she yells, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. But then listen to what he says. He really must have thought that God was going to save him again, that God was not going to betray him like he had betrayed God. God wasn't going to forsake him like he had forsaken God, and he was going to still have his strength. Or he was just too sleepy to know what was going on. But it says here in verse 20, that she yells that the Philistines are upon you. And it says he woke up from his sleep and he said, I'll just go out as I did before all those other times and I'll shake myself free. But he did not know that the Lord had departed from him. And so the Philistines took him, and it says they gouged out his eyes and they put him in prison in Gaza and they bound him with shackles. And then it says they made him grind meal. And this was like the ultimate, degrading act, because this is what the women would do because they're not strong enough to do manly labor. And so instead of, just saying you're so weak that we were able to capture you and imprison you, they're like, not only are you weak enough for us to all capture you, but you're not even a man anymore. You can't even do what the normal men do. You're reduced to women's work. That's what they're trying to say by giving him this job. And so because he was worn down emotionally and couldn't take it anymore, then he wasn't thinking logically, right? Satan had him so boxed in and so trapped that he thought his only two options were to listen to her forever and try to resist her every single day, or just give in and deal with the consequences. That is the two options that Satan gave to him, and he fell for it. And he had decided that he could not take this one more day, and whatever he faced after this, that was fine. It was better than this. And so that's what I was asking you a while ago. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt like anything is better than this, right? I can't do this one more second. And so I don't care what happens to me after this, as long as it's not this, because I can't take it anymore. And, if you're only presented with two options, either take this forever or give into your temptation and do the thing that you shouldn't do, then you're already dealing with the miserable part right now, right? And so you're just trying to get away from that. And you have decided, whatever after this, I'll deal with that after this, but I got to get out of what I'm doing right now. And so you opt for whatever you're not dealing with at the moment. If you have only two options, this one's horrible. And so you're just like, I'll do anything else. And that's the situation that Satan put him in, and he fell for it. But you have to wonder at this point, now that God did not give him his strength this time, now is he thinking that this was the right option? Now is he sitting there thinking, I'm glad I still think I made the right choice, now that he's blind and imprisoned? Probably not, right? Probably at this point, he's thinking, oh, maybe I could have dealt with that woman, or maybe I had another option. And that's where Satan really gets us. He tricks us into thinking we didn't have any other options. And so, as I said before, most people think that Samson's weakness was women, which it is. And so we just have to try to resist the women. But in Proverbs 7, at the end of that whole chapter is talking about resisting the woman. But even in resisting the woman, it says the way you resist her is to turn to God. And so in Proverbs 7, 1-5, it says, my son, keep my words and treasure my commands within you. Keep my commandments and live, and my law as the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers, write them on the tablet of your heart. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding your nearest of kin, that they may keep you from the immoral woman, from the seductress who flatters with her words. And so this is how you don't fall into the woman's trap that actually Satan is setting for you, right? Is you treasure wisdom and understanding, and you write God's words on your heart, and you follow those. You make those the most important thing. And so what he's saying is that in order to resist Satan, you need to, follow God. That is how we resist. And then at the end of the chapter, it talks about what happens when you fall into this trap with the women. And even though we're going to be talking about Satan for the rest of this, I did want to read it because it's exactly what happens to Samson. So this is Proverbs 7:21-27, and it says, with her enticing speech, she caused him to yield. With her flattering lips, she seduced him. Immediately he went after her, as an ox goes to the slaughter, or as a fool to the correction of the stocks. Till an arrow struck his liver, as a bird hastens to the snare, he didn't know that it would cost him his life. Now, therefore, listen to me, my children. Pay attention to the words of my mouth. Do not let your heart turn aside to her ways. Do not stray in her path. For she has cast down many wounded, and all who were slain by her were strong men. Her house is the way to hell, descending to the chambers of death. And that's what happened to Samson, right? He is just following her down the wrong path. And this chapter is talking about a man that is doing this for temporary pleasure. And Samson is doing it to escape temporary misery, but it's all the same. Women have this power. That is women's superpower, right? Is to use the things that God gave them, their beauty and their, seductive skills to get men to either sleep with them, or their skills of, you don't love me, you're hurting my feelings, and crying and all of that, to get what they want. That's not always the reason that we do it. Sometimes we're actually sad, but you get what I'm saying. And so God is saying, don't fall for that trap, right? Because if that is your weakness, Satan will use that against you. And so that is Samson's weakness. And he definitely fell into that trap. And it says, they didn't know it was going to cost them their lives. And Samson is now captured and in prison. And we don't know if it's going to cost him his life yet or not, but it's very possible, right?